Hello everyone. You're welcome to another episode of Mathematics Tutorials brought to you by Mathscare Mathematics Tutorials. My name is Eric. Now, in this video or in this tutorial, we're going to look at quadratic equations. So our topic is quadratic equations and let's get started. Now, quadratic equations are not difficult as you think. So let's look at our topic first, and then we so quadratic. So we have quadratic equations. All right. Now, when we talk of a quadratic equation, what is a quadratic equation? So a quadratic equation is any equation that is in the form or is an equation of the form, let's say y is equal to ab squared. All right. Let's say ax squared plus bx plus c. All right. This is a quadratic equation. So any equation that is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, we say is called a quadratic equation. All right. All right. Now, let's look at an example. So for instance, if I put here, let's say y is equal to 3x squared plus, let's say, 2x plus 4, for instance. This is a quadratic equation. All right. All right. So sometimes a quadratic equation needs to be rewritten. You need to write it in the order, in the standard form. All right. For instance, if I have, let's say, y minus 4 is equal to 3x squared plus 2x. You know, this equation can be written back as this, in the sense that if we have y is equal to, we have 3x squared plus 2x, then negative 4 will cross the equal sign, or just adding 4 to both sides, we shall have plus 4. So this is what we have. All right. So sometimes there are situations where, knowing that this is the standard form of a quadratic equation, you will, if the equation is not in standard form or in order, you have to rewrite it so that it will be in the form, or it will be in the standard form of a quadratic equation. All right. All right. Now, let's continue from this point. So we have said that a quadratic equation is an equation of the form y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, if y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, then if you come here, this is the first term that you have here. So this is your leading coefficient, that is the first term. This is the middle term, and then this is what? The constant. So any number that is here is called the constant. All right. All right. Now, what happens is that when we solve a quadratic equation, to be able to solve this equation, or for us to solve this equation, we shall say that y is equal to 0. So if y is equal to 0, then we shall have 0 is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So it is for this reason that whenever we want to solve a quadratic equation, or whenever we see a quadratic equation, the equation is always equated to 0, or we always equate whatever is here to 0. Meaning that for us to be able to solve and get the values of, or the value or the values of x, we need to make y, or substitute y to 0, all right, or substitute 0 for y. So that is why a quadratic equation is always equal to 0. So when you rewrite your equation, however you rewrite it, you must equate everything to 0. At that point, what are you doing? At that point, you are looking for the values of x, or we say you are looking for the x-intercepts. So you are looking for, when you solve a quadratic equation, what is the aim of solving the quadratic equation? The aim of solving the quadratic equation is to get the x-intercepts. So x-intercepts. Now we are saying plural intercepts because you're going to get two answers for x. You are going to get x1 and then you are going to get x2. So whenever you solve a quadratic equation, you are going to have two values for x. So you say x1 and x2. All right. All right. Now, if we solve the quadratic equation and we are looking for the x-intercepts, we also say that we are looking for the roots. When you solve a quadratic equation, the answers that you get, which are x1 and x2, we say that they are the roots of the equation. Then the third one is that we can also say that apart from saying that they are the roots, we can also say that whatever numbers or answers you get for your x values, we say they are the zeros of the equation. So when a quadratic equation or when an equation asks you to find the zeros of that equation, and that equation is a quadratic equation, it means you should find the x-intercepts. Or when a question says that you should find the roots of the equation, it means solve the equation and get the answers. The answers that you get are the roots. And then when you solve a quadratic equation, or when a question says find the x-intercepts of a quadratic equation, it means solve and get the answers for x and y. But at a point where you are looking for the x-intercepts and you are looking for the roots or you are looking for the zeros, at that point, remember, y does not have a value. Y is always equal to 0. It is only when y is equal to 0 that you can solve the equation and have the x-intercepts or have the roots of the equation or have the zeros of the equation, which will be in the form two values, x1 and x2. I hope you do follow this. All right. Now, do share this video. Share it, tag your friends. If you are a parent watching this, please share it so that, or encourage your children to follow my page. The page is Mathcare Mathematics Tutorials. So let's put it here. So it's Mathcare. So Mathcare Mathematics Tutorials. So if you are a parent, you can encourage your children to actually subscribe to my channel so that they will be notified whenever there's a new video. Now these tutorials are on core mathematics and elective mathematics. All right. So when you subscribe, you'll be notified whenever we upload a new video. There are already videos there. When you subscribe, you can go and watch them on YouTube. And then also, don't forget to give this video a thumb up. And then also, if you have problems with mathematics and you are struggling with mathematics and you want to overcome it, you want to improve your grades, you do not want to go and write your WASI and fail and re-register to go and write a lot of costs, it's better you register with me. I will have a one-on-one tutorial with you and make sure you write your exams once and for all and pass. All right. Do not become a customer to WAEC, because when you fail mathematics, you will first of all buy forms. That is a lot of money already. Pay for the subject, number of subjects you are writing, and then you will attend lessons again and pay for it. So it's better you speak with me, you register with me, and I'll give you a one-on-one tutorial. I have a WhatsApp group where my members who have registered are part of the group, so there's nobody fooling on that group. Everyone is serious on that group, and then you will benefit from a lot of things. All right. So if you are interested in learning mathematics or upgrading your mathematics grades or scores, then what you need to do is that you need to contact me, and then I will let you know the requirements, what you need to do, and then you will register, and then I will give you tutorials, or you receive tutorials and learning materials from us to make sure you pass your examination. So share this video. Now, so this is what we have said. So when a question says find the x-intercepts, find the roots or find the zeros of an equation, especially a quadratic equation, then it means solve it and get your answers for x, and which will be two values whenever we solve a quadratic equation, and then that's it. All right. So now this is where we have come to. All right. Now let's look at something. When we graph, all right, when we graph a quadratic equation, okay, when we graph a quadratic equation, we get something like this. So let's put this here. This is our y-axis, and then this is our x-axis. All right. So let's put it here. Now, when we graph, whenever we graph, let's say here is 1, and let's say here is 2, here is 3. This is -1, -2, and -3. Let's put here -1, let's put here -2, and let's put here -3. All right. Now, whenever we graph a quadratic equation, we put it on a graph, we get something like this. So as you get something like this, all right, we get something like this. Now, this is, let's write, the name of this is ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, the equation that was used to draw this graph, that is the name that is given to this graph. All right. Now we get something like this. This thing is called a parabola. Okay, so parabola. So this is a parabola. Now there are a lot of things that you need to know about this parabola. Okay, so let's look at what we can learn from this parabola. Now you could see that this graph cuts the x-axis at this point, and then it also cuts the x-axis at this point. It means that these are the zeros of this equation or this graph. All right, these are the zeros, or these are the x-intercepts. Remember, we have x1 and x2, so this is x1, and then this is what, x2. So we have two values. So at the point where we shall have x, for the graph to cut the x-axis, it means y has no value. Y is equal to 0. So here, if this place is -0.5, it means y is equal to 0, and then x is equal to -0.5. So that is one we have here. And then at this point also, x is -0.5, y is equal to 0, is this point. And then this point is where x is equal to 2, and then y has no value, y is equal to 0. You see? So that is it. So the intercepts, the x-intercepts are this -0.5 and then +2 that we have here. All right. So the roots is the same thing. The roots are this point and this point, or the zeros are this point and this point, or the x-intercepts are this point and this point. So that is it. Then the other thing that we can also learn about this parabola is the vertex. You see this point. The point, this point is the vertex. So we have the vertex. This is the vertex. All right. Then the line that actually divides this graph into exactly two halves is what we call the axis of symmetry. So we call it the axis of symmetry. That's double M. So that's the axis of symmetry. Now, how do you find the axis of symmetry? We shall come to that. So this is the axis of symmetry. And then there's something else that we need to know. Now, whenever you have a quadratic equation of this, which is this form, what happens is that, remember that a is any value which is not 0, and a cannot be 0, because the moment a is 0, if you substitute 0 here, 0 times s squared will give you 0. In that case, this part will go off, and then what will be left with y will be equal to bx plus c, and that will tend to be a linear equation. It is no longer a quadratic equation. So for that reason, it is important for you to know that whatever value represents a here, it cannot be or must not be equal to 0. All right. So a can be any number greater than or equal to 1, or a can be any number less than or equal to 1, but not 0. All right. So that's it. Now we shall come back to this. All right. So that is an important point to note. Now, whenever this graph whenever the parabola, you draw a graph, and then the the graph opens upwards, like this one is receiving. All right, we say it's receiving because look at the hands. It says it's receiving. It's like a bucket collecting water. So whenever it is like this, what you have here is that you have a minimum point. Okay, a minimum point at the vertex. You have a minimum point at the vertex. Now, whenever the graph is also upward, okay, when the graph goes upwards, this is upwards. When the graph opens downwards, it means that you will have a maximum value at the vertex. All right. Now, at what point are you going to have a minimum value or a maximum value? Or at what point are you going to have a curve that is open upwards or open downwards? At what point? So what happens is, whatever situation you will have, whether the curve will open upwards or will open downwards, it depends, or it's dependent on the value that you have for x. Now, for a, sorry. So when a is negative, when a is negative, then what happens? When a is negative, then what happens is that you actually will have a curve that is downward, that opens downwards like this. That is when a is negative. All right. But when a is positive, then you will have a curve that is opening upwards, or that opens upwards. In that case, when a is positive, you will have a minimum value at the vertex. So when a is negative, the curve will actually open downwards. That means you will have a maximum. So you have a maximum value at the vertex, and then the opposite is true. So that means that when a is positive, you will have a what? A minimum value. So when a is positive, we shall have what? A minimum. So minimum, okay? We shall have a minimum value at the vertex. All right. So now we have known all these things. Then again, what happens is that this line that actually divides this vertex, so divides the curve into two equal halves, we said it is called the axis of symmetry. What is the formula for finding the axis of symmetry? The formula for finding the axis of symmetry is negative b over 2. So negative b over 2. It means that whenever an equation is given, whatever number is here, if you want to find the equation of the axis of symmetry, take that number, negate it, and divide it by 2. So for instance, if it is 3 that is here, let's say here is 3x, you will say 3 over 2. Okay, negative 3 over 2. And that will give you your equation of the axis of symmetry. However, if this figure that we have here is negative, remember that if it's negative, then you need to negate it because the negative sign is there already in the formula. So whatever is there, you negate it and then you divide by 2. In that case, this negative negative will become positive. So this number will become positive now. So it will be positive 3 over 2. So know your signs. All right. Know your signs. That is integers. All right. So that is about that. All right. Now, let's clean the board a bit so that we can have space to do fresh things. Now, with all these things being said, all right, with all these things being said, um, what we're going to look at now is we have said that whenever we have a quadratic equation, we may be asked to find, we will set the equation to be equal to 0, and we may set up or set off to be finding the x, the x-intercepts. We have said so. Then we also be finding the zeros. So finding the zeros. So finding, let's put the finding there. So finding the zeros. So let's say finding the zeros. And then also the third is we say that we are finding the roots. So finding the roots. All right. Now, if that is what we are saying, then how do we find the x-intercepts? Or how do we find the zeros? Or how do we find the roots? It means we are talking about methods of solving a quadratic equation so we can find the x-intercepts, or so we can find the zeros, or so we can find the roots. In that case, we are saying solving the quadratic equation or finding the values of x, or finding the value of x, or solving for x. How do we do that? It means there are certain methods that are used in computing the x-intercepts, the zeros, the roots, or solving for x in a quadratic equation. So now what we are going to look at is the various methods used in solving a quadratic equation or an equation of the form. All right. So now let's look at the methods for solving quadratic equations. So we have methods. So methods of solving a quadratic methods for solving a quadratic equation. All right. Now let's look at the first one. The first one is done by factoring. Okay, by factoring. So the first one, we have the factoring method. All right. So we have the factoring method. Okay. All right. Then the second one, number 2, is that we have what we call the we have the factoring method. So let's put the factoring method over here. And then the second one, most people have complained about it. Okay. So what you have to do, it involves squaring. Okay. So it involves squaring. And so what we're going to do is we are not going to solve quadratic equations for today. We are only going to look at the methods of solving quadratic equations. That's what I've explained from the beginning up to this point. So this is an introduction. So the next time we meet, then we are going to look at how to solve a quadratic equation, or how to solve quadratic equations using these methods that we are talking about here. Okay, all right. So we have uh, the square method. I think I have made a mistake. That's nothing I can do. A mistake like this. Perfect square method. Not perfect square method. Eh,